I'm going to show you how to make a seamless collage where you cannot see the edges, everything looks perfect. And this is both the green and blue assignment for this week. Excuse me. So, so you'll see that it will bridge you into the creative assignment, and I'm going to teach you the techniques here. Um, all right. So the concept of this assignment is um, atavistic, which means that you're taking a portrait of yourself and changing yourself into some kind of magical being with that's maybe like some core spiritual archetype of what it means to be human. So that's the concept, but you'll see it's pretty simple and it's step by step. What I have here is this photo that I took of myself. So that's a self-portrait. And I have a cool smartphone and cool lights in my office. And I was using the portrait mode on my smartphone, so it blurred the background for me. So to take a beautiful self-portrait, however you can, and then finally, you're going to find elements to combine it with. So I just went on Unsplash and I looked for orchids. And the idea is that I'm making myself into this atavistic creature that has mystical plant power and maybe is partially an orchid, right? So every collage element that I'm going to paste onto my face, I'm going to make it seamless so it doesn't look like a collage. It looks like the flowers are actually emerging out of my face. So that is the basic concept, and remember, this is a creative assignment as well. So take your self-portrait and then think about something that sort of means something to you spiritually. I think that leaves and plant forms are really easy to work with, but you can do the same process with animals. You could turn yourself into a lion or something like that using this exact same process. It's up to you. Um, but remember, it's creative, so it's an important project, not just it's not just a tutorial. So you should try to finish it and make it seamless. And I'm going to just show you how to do it. All right, so I use basically any rough selection method that I have here. Right, so I'm just using a lasso, and I don't care if it's seamless or not. Then I copy it, then I go here, and then I paste it, right? Then I'm going to, fit it, and I'm going to come up with, kind of a strategy, like maybe, are these emerging out of my hair, my forehead? Maybe I'll just try to put these around my eye. Okay, great. Now, um, now the having a convincing, having a seamless collage isn't just about perfect selection. It's also about color and value. So one of the first things I do here is I add another layer, and you guessed it, I set that layer to color. Then using my brush tool, I hold Option, and if I'm using a brush and I hold Option, that lets me sample from the flower. So in order to make this look more magical, I'm going to get my skin to be the same color as the flower, or within reason. Cool, right? So now I have these yellows. And then the other thing that you can see is that meh, it sort of matches. I would actually prefer this color layer to be below the flower. All right, it sort of matches, but to me, it's a little like, see how light the flower is. It seems like even though this is a good picture of me, it just seems like the range is a little bit darker in my face. So imagine if you could see this in black and white. And it's not going to match because my face is a slightly darker key than the flower itself. So the next move that I'm going to make is I'm just going to um, adjust the levels. I always double click the background, make it a layer, and then I'll do Command L, and that gives me the levels. And I'm sort of, so now my structure is, see, layer 1 I have the flower, layer 2 I have the color, layer 3 I have my face. And I'm just adjusting the levels using Command L, and I'm changing my face and I'm increasing the levels of that picture to the point where I think that it's going to match the flower a little more. Now I'm also being careful because, like, see that shine mark on my forehead? That's going to clip out, which means it's going to be pure white, and I don't really want that. But the leaf on this petal gets close to pure white, so I just want those to match. So we've taken care of the first couple of elements here, and we can keep adjusting them. And those are color, right? So color followed by exposure, right? So color and value. All right, now I'm going to turn this flower off for a minute, and you can see that I can keep building colors kind of in the natural way that, your eyes are a little more red, the skin around your eyes is a little more tender. I'm gonna, make the skin around my lips a little more vivid, right? So I'm sort of basically becoming a little more orchidy, and take advantage of this color part and make it sensitive, right? Let's see. Turn this back on. Grab another color. So now I'm seeing this really beautiful peach color. I'll try to get that. Turn this off. And then I'll try to add even more. Cool. And the peach is really nice. I mean, so already it's looking pretty weird, and you can see, kind of the direction that I'm heading of making myself into this plant creature, right? Now I'm in the color layer and I've overshot a little bit, so I want to just go ahead and clean that up because the illusion won't work if the color also applies to the background. So I want to say that, that this is just the weirdness of this character, and I don't want to leave Photoshop traces. Okay, cool. So now let's do some seamless adjustment. Now, basically, you can just, you can work on this in some of the same selection methods that we've been doing, right? Like you could enter quick mask. Remember, this is here. You press Q on your keyboard. Then you could paint a quick mask. You could then soften the edge with a brush. But when doing this kind of work, I almost always prefer just masking. Masking is the same as selection, but it's permanent, and it's always applied to the layer. So let's add a mask, and that's this button down here. It's a circle inside of a square. And now with that, so the function of it is if you just draw in black paint with a black brush, you're saying no to the image. You're turning it off. So I have low opacity, right? So it has the effect of erasing the image. All right. So this is a pressure sensitive brush. So you can see I can sort of slowly integrate this. So that's one way of working, is just with the brush. But my favorite way of doing this flawless mask um, is with the gradient tool. So let's just zoom in and we'll work on that. All right, So you can see this is, this is working, and um, whatever you do, open your brushes palette. And make sure that make sure that what you're doing has a soft edge, because that is what's going to make it believable. But then see, when you get up to the edge of this flower, then you need to work in a hard way, because you need to preserve that edge. Transparency is another thing that will give it away, right? So we're just kind of slowly working our way through this. And here is my favorite technique for this, though, especially on the face. I'm not going to use any of this green, right? I want this to match. Ooh, but you know what? I think that I need the green, because that would be really cool on the eyes. It's already looking pretty trippy and cool. And then maybe I will, use some elements of that. Anyways, I will get too much into my own version of the project. Okay, so my favorite way of working in a most effective way is, just click and hold on the paint bucket and grab the gradient instead. And now pop open your gradient list, and the one that you need is the second gradient, right? So the second gradient is whatever's in the foreground goes all the way to transparent. All right. So whatever's in the foreground, which in my case is green, goes all the way to transparent. And I want the gradient to be radial. That's the only setting it works on. So the second setting, it's the second gradient, it's the second setting. And then, in terms of color, I just want to use black and white. So I will hit the default button, which is black and white, or you can just hit D on your keyboard, and D will switch your colors to default, which is black and white. So if your gradient list might look a little bit different, but just go through and locate that gradient. Let me see. Yeah, so here it is under basics. If you don't have this, if it doesn't appear this way under basics, it appears to be the second gradient under basics, right? So that's how to locate it. And then to check it, just choose a different color, and you'll see that now it's white to transparent, right? So you always want foreground to transparent, not a particular color, and you always want it set to radial. It won't work on any of these other settings. So now with that exact setting, you go to the mask, and then you're basically just drawing little circles. And if we look at the mask by itself, hold on here. Oops, sorry. If you look at the mask by itself, you can see that it just gives you these soft little circles. But boy, this is the most effective tool for masking, because the circles just build up into these fields. And in this field, it's totally gone right there in the middle, and then everywhere else it has a soft edge, and it's really, really easy to control, right? So when you're doing this in real life, you can oops. Okay, now here's a mistake that I made and you will make too. I was painting on the layer instead of the mask, by accident. So just know to recognize that if you ever have the feeling that it didn't do what you wanted, make sure that you click on the mask, not the layer itself. Um, that will confuse you. All right, so see, I can actually get really refined right up to this edge. Um, I can place my. I think I want this more like right there for one eye. And that was just a transform. I can find my eye, and I can sort of and I can really integrate it, right? The color scheme already matches, so I know it's going to look great. And explore. Okay, so I want to see my nose, right? So you just make these decisions, right? So in this case, I want the nose to be totally revealed. Um, cool. And then this edge, I basically need to treat a little bit differently. So I'll go back to my brush and uh, open my brush palette. Brushes. Okay. So I'll just sort of work really carefully along that edge. And it's okay if you end up with a little more transparency than you intend, because transparency means it'll take on the color of the surroundings. So even if, so see, I'm kind of getting a little annoyed at that right now because I'm like, oh, that's way less transparency than I wanted. I didn't want that edge to disappear. But because the selection set is totally editable, then I don't have to worry about it, because I don't have just one shot for making the selection, right? All right, so I'm using a default color. I'm painting out the mask. And then I lost this edge up here. So if you look at the mask and you think that, so see here's, you can read the transparency in the mask. And I'm just doing this by option clicking on the mask so I can see it. And that got to be too much transparency. So black means that it's not there and white means that it is there. So all I have to do is press X on my keyboard and switch to white. And I can reveal that edge a little more in the mask, right? Let me just escape from that view though, and um, and then I'll just draw that edge back in with white. But I do want it to be, kind of fragile and ethereal. I'll press X again on the keyboard, and now I'm painting with black. I'm just going really slowly because I have a low opacity setting. Cool. Now already this what I have is a really really spooky and a really powerful effect, right? And then already when I see this, I have a ton of new ideas, right? I really like that green color. I think I didn't give that enough credit. So I want to go back and maybe, try some of that in the hair. And remember, this is a color layer, right? It's not just a normal layer. So in no way am I just painting over my hair, right? I'm painting color into my hair. So I'm doing some kind of weird fade where it's green underneath. Maybe have a green beard. And and the key to this, I mean, to all Photoshop brushwork is to is always check that opacity setting. And if you don't, I mean, you don't have a Wacom tablet, you just have like whatever you have on your computer, like a normal mouse or even just a touchpad. Um, just take the time to lower that opacity setting, so that every time you're doing brushwork, you're going really slowly. Now I have the idea. I'm just loving that green, so I have the idea that it should be like my neck should be a stem. Cool. So see, that was already, I mean, it was really, really simple. Um, there was just a couple techniques, but the effect is really, really dramatic. And it is about crafting those perfect selection sets. But you'll always be able to recognize when selection sets don't match, when they're the wrong color and when they're the wrong value, right? The reason this is so powerful is because I thought through all of that color work and I made those adjustments for myself of matching the color and matching the value in the photograph before I started. So you can do this with anything. This is a creative assignment. Remember, you could do it, you could do it with bricks, you could do it with feathers, you could do it with rocks, you could do it with lava, you could do it with pictures of wolves. You can do anything. But this was just to demonstrate the technique for you and get you started on the assignment. So I hope you like that. And remember, you can do this on, and remember, the trick is color and value in addition to good selection, right? Like if I just look at this layer by itself, that's not that great. That selection isn't perfect. But since I bothered to make this color layer, right? So you can already see that the color layer is a huge part of the illusion. So there's the color layer. And then I did levels, which was Command L, and adjusted the photograph. And I matched both the light and exposure as well as the color. Then anything I do here will be really dramatic. Now, if I go back and I get other flowers and they don't match, like they're darker, then you'd have to go through that same process. You'd have to get them to match the color, get them to match the exposure, and only then will it really be flawless. So I think something about Photoshop is that we always think like, oh, you can edit photos digitally. Oh, the magic of the computer, but it's not using a computer. It's actually your understanding of art and design issues, right? So understanding that the reason that something doesn't match, so you can't make a perfect collage, is because the color doesn't match, and the exposure doesn't match. Once you match the color and the exposure, making a perfect selection set is actually kind of secondary. All right, so that's it. You're making this, I call it an atavistic self portrait. It should be a portrait of you mixed with whatever objects are of your choice. Make sure to turn it in on Blackboard and make sure to also post it on the blog. All right, and I think I'm pretty sure I'm not totally certain, but I think that will be the only tutorial exercise as well. So it'll just all be integrated in because there's no real reason to do it twice. But check the Blackboard and Slack channel for sure. All right, hope you have fun with that. Hope you like that, and send me any questions. All right, bye.